Hello, my name is Isabella Morano, and my project for this year's symposium is Microplastics in the Environment, How Something So Small Creates Such a Global Impact. So what exactly are microplastics? Microplastics are classified as any piece of plastic that is smaller than 5 millimeters in any given dimension. They can be found in oceans, lakes, rivers, creeks, or anywhere that there is a body of water, regardless of its size. Microplastics can also be found on land, in soil specifically, and in any agricultural plot of land because of the microplastics used to cultivate crops such as pearls. The easy formation of microplastics, as well as the different types of plastics that form the microplastics, lead to the pervasiveness of these particles. Microplastics form from plastic slowly breaking down over time or from manufactured pieces of plastic small enough to infiltrate into bodies of water and soil. Additionally, something as simple as a washing machine can yield millions of microplastics every year. If scientists and the general public understand the hazards of microplastics, what's the appeal? The most common answer is that they are cheap and easy substitutes for an alternative and more sustainable solution. For example, up until 2015, before the ban of them, many cosmetic companies used microplastics as a way to exfoliate and create a textural experience when customers use their products. This use of microplastics instead of, say, a coffee exfoliant contributed to billions of microplastics in the ocean worldwide. Similarly, the use of cheap agri-capsules used to help the control of the release and conversion of ammonium to nitrate supplied the neighboring soil of these plants with thousands of microplastics per plot. Turf is another example because of its cost effectiveness and low maintenance. At this point, you may be wondering what are the regulations in place on microplastics to help curb the negative effects on both people and the environment. Aside from the ban on microbeads and cosmetics, there are no regulations regarding tap water or bottled water. In fact, 94% of tap water in the average household contains plastic of some sort. If you drink tap water every day, this would be equivalent to consuming 5 grams of microplastics in a month. That's the same amount of plastic required to create a credit card. Other countries have also recognized the threat of these plastics. These countries include the Netherlands, Australia, Canada, Italy, Korea, New Zealand, Sweden, the United Kingdom, and the United States have all made strides to help ban these microplastics. Just as there are many negative implications of using microplastics in the environment, there are just as many, if not more, negative implications of ingesting microplastics. For recycling and other purposes, plastics are labeled into categories 1 through 7. Plastics labeled 3, 6, and 7 all contain chemicals that have been known to cause cancer. Some of these chemicals include phthalates, polystyrene foam, polyvinyl chloride, and bisphenol A polypropylene. These all contain endocrine-disrupting chemicals. These disruptors affect the endocrine system, which is responsible for growth, energy, stress, and development, and can trigger or affect cells developmentally and lead to mutations involved with cancer. To try and further my research as to the effects of microplastics locally, I contacted Matthew Barthram, a professor at Allegheny College who was able to explain to me his findings in Meadville, PA. He and his team used both filters and fine nets to gain a more accurate representation of microplastic prevalence. He reported finding various microplastics of varying sizes and explained the importance of thoroughly testing water at different depths and distances from the shore. I also conducted research on roughly an 100-foot stretch of Little Swickley Creek, as well as an 100-foot stretch of a riverbank on the Ohio. The riverbank yielded 3 times as much plastic and debris as the creek did. Additionally, the creek stretch consisted of mainly plastic water bottles and larger pieces of plastic, whereas the riverbank had microplastics as well as large plastic pieces and a few full bottles. The long-term effects of having microplastics in the creek could kill species of larvae and smaller organisms because of the size of the organism in comparison to the size of the plastic. The big picture. Globally, there are many countries that have made progress as to stopping microplastics, creating an issue for both the people living there and the environment. The countries highlighted in blue are the ones that have done this so far. The red spots represent hot spots and accumulations of microplastics, depending on the quantity. As you can see, the largest 2 dots are in Pacific Ocean as a result of different currents and winds creating a spiral vortex of trash that's accumulating called the Pacific Garbage Patch. This is as a result of lots of textile production as well as pollution of plastics that accumulate because of these winds and currents. With all this being said, how do we prevent and protect the possibly irreversible damages that microplastics can cause on both the environment and the people living in these environments? One approach is sustainable fashion. This involves either thrifting or fact-checking where you're buying your clothing to avoid fast fashion. Fast fashion can generate billions of microplastics and microfibers into environments where microplastics should not be found. This is a result of the different polyesters, specifically nylons, that are used that create these particles that do not decompose or break down. Another approach is conscious consumerism, whether that is making sustainable life choices through using glass bottles or opting to use reusable containers for lunches. These small actions have a huge impact on the amount of microplastics introduced into environments as well as ingesting microplastics. Thank you so much for listening to my project this year. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at the email address provided below. And here are all of my sources for this project.